Bienvenidos a todos. Vamos a hacer esta presentación hoy en inglés, pero al fin vamos a recibir preguntas en español y inglés. Okay? All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Wendy Norris, and I am the moderator of today's session entitled Leonora Carrington, Her Life and Legacy. I have been working, I'm a gallerist in San Francisco, and have had the pleasure of working with both Leonora and her family for over a decade. And in that time, I produced two solo exhibitions in my gallery in San Francisco and have supported, I think, 6 exhibitions around the world, including from Vancouver Art Gallery to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art to also, most recently, the Tate Liverpool. And in that also, I've been very keen on supporting the publication and scholarship on the work of Leonora Carrington, producing catalogs for my shows and also supporting the production of a gorgeous book that the Tate Liverpool did last year. I think it's interesting that we've been talking all day today. There was a breakfast earlier with the family this morning and a bunch of Carrington champions about Leonora and her legacy, and I'm wondering, what would she have thought of all of this, really? When I about 9 years ago, did her first solo exhibition in San Francisco, she gracefully agreed to do a 2-day press conference here in Mexico City in anticipation of this. And she had one really strict requirement. She said, okay, Wendy, I will do 2 days of interviews with 9 different press people, but I will not talk about my art. I will talk about politics, alchemy, world religion, the animal kingdom, anything of interest to me. But if there's anything that comes up about my art, you need to talk about those. You need to answer those questions. And I thought, wow, that's a lot of pressure for a relatively young art gallerist to be put under by this great, legendary painter. So, I think that brings us here to the point of why we're here today. For me, it's really important as a gallery who shows her work in a very contemporary context. I show her work alongside contemporary artists because I think it expands the discussion, makes her feel more timeless, her work, and it also adds value to the great influence she's had on younger artists, many of whose work you can see out here at ZsONAMACO today. I mentioned Pedro Reyes as an example of a great Mexican artist who spent time with her in her studio, and she had such a profound effect on a lot of the conceptual underpinnings of his work. And I think also the artist that I'm showing here at ZsONAMACO, a Los Angeles-based painter, her whole worldview was changed when she saw the In Wonderland show that Arcq curated at LACMA and saw the paintings of Leonora Carrington. So I'm very excited here today to really talk about, what is a foundation, why does it matter, and more specifically, why does the Leonora Carrington Foundation matter, and how can we all get behind it and support it? So I'm very excited to have Teresa, Arcq, Angus McQueen, and Dr. Gabriel Weisz here with us today to talk about it. Arcq is a dear friend and a renowned scholar and curator, and she's going to share some of her projects with us today. She's just, I think, 2 or 3 days back from Brazil, where she just finished another groundbreaking 600,000 attendees, the record ever for this museum in Brazil, on a show that she curated on Frida Kahlo and her influence on other women surrealists in Mexico. And it's really been highly critically acclaimed, not surprisingly, with Tere, but she's going to talk a little bit about that. And Angus McQueen, who flew in from London, has I think 30 or so films under his belt at this. I may be losing track, and we're very excited about a major documentary he's doing on Leonora's life. And if we're lucky, at some point, he's going to show us a clip, a little teaser, as we say, of the project that he's working on. And lastly, finally, Dr. Weisz, Leonora's son, is going to talk a little bit about the foundation itself, the structure of it, and some of the goals and projects, because really a lot of the work that has already been done, there's a lot more to do to unpack really the luscious, rich, vibrant work that this wonderful person has given us. So, Terry, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Patty and Gabby, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. As some of you know, Leonora is one of the main focuses of my work and my research. I've been working with the women surrealists in Mexico for many years now. And the reason that Wendy invited me to be here is to talk to you a little bit about why it's very important to preserve the legacy, the archives of the artists with foundations, and how that help the curators, the researchers, the scholars, in order to preserve the legacy through exhibitions, books, new research. So I'm going to share with you several projects I've done and explain how the archives and the foundations have helped me to make that possible. So to begin with, the very first project I did as a curator was at the Modern Art Museum, and it was mostly about a legal battle regarding the Remedios Varo's donation to the museum. Her latest partner, Walter Gruen, and his former wife, Alexandra Varsoviano, they gathered a collection of 39 works by Remedios Varo. Most of them were previously owned by other collectors, and then they bought them afterwards to create this collection that they gave to the museum, so her legacy will be preserved somewhere in Mexico. And there was a huge scandal in the news, and Nice was trying to claim that as an inheritance. And this is where the importance of the archive came in this case, is because of all the papers, the catalogs of previous exhibitions, everything that was preserved, we were able to prove that those paintings had previous owners. They had another provenance, that they were indeed painted by Remedios, but they were exhibited when she was still alive, they were sold when she was still alive, they were even lent by these people to exhibitions. Later on, they were insured by the Modern Art Museum or the Fine Arts Palace, and then they were bought again by Walter Gruen, who gave them to the museum. So in this case, the archive had a legal purpose, and it was very helpful to preserve this legacy in Mexico. And after a long time, the trial was won, and the works are in Mexico for good. And also, because of this research in the archive, I started realizing that there were many aspects in Remedios Varo's work that had not been studied before. They were sort of mentioned briefly in every book, and it was like a repetition. Everybody mentioned that Remedios was very influenced by the work of the Russian mystics, Gurdjieff and Uspensky, and with Kabbalah and astrology, sort of like Leonora as well, who was a very close friend of hers. And so I went to her archive, and I went reading all the books she read, seeing where they were marked, finding papers, everything I could, and that was also very helpful in my research to do this book, the 5 Secret Keys of Remedios Varo's work, who later turned into an exhibition. So everything that she had preserved, not only her paintings, but also the books she kept in her library that she carefully marked, and papers. She even kept inside the books papers from her stay in Paris where a gypsy read her hands, and things that are so meaningful for the surrealists and that help to do new scholarship and build new visions on their work. So this book later turned into an exhibition to commemorate the centennial of Remedios Varo's work. This I curated at the Modern Art Museum in 2008, and the museum included many documents that were found in her archive as well. Of course, also the archive helped a lot tracking down paintings that were somehow lost, that we have lost track of who owned them, and that helped to put together a very, very big show. Another work I have done with an archive, it was with Alice Rahon. She was also a surrealist from France, and she was also friends with Leonora's Remedios. She came in exile in Mexico during the war. And she had a retrospective 1 year before she died in 1993 at the Fine Arts Palace here. But it was an exhibition based on only 3 collections: the artist collection, one of her mecenas, and her lawyer. And a lot of her work had been disseminated during the 50s or 60s because she had a lot of shows in the US, for example. She was also represented by Galería de Arte Mexicano at the very beginning, and they had a lot of American clients. But she was very careful to photograph each work she painted, and on the back of the photograph she wrote the name of the collector that bought it. So the archive was unedited. She didn't have, and she had only friends, and it was full of newspapers, old newspapers, because the cats used to sleep on it. It was in big cardboard boxes, and we found treasures there. And because of the archive, it was possible to do this big retrospective, getting a lot of paintings that we didn't know where they were, and we were able to track down because of the archive, and also to make sure that every single painting that was exhibited there was original and was made by her, because we had the proof, either with the photograph, either with the newspapers clippings that she kept, with all the catalogs of her exhibitions. So that was a very important use of an archive to preserve the legacy of an artist. And some of the documents were also exhibited. For instance, there were paintings on the wall, and then in the vitrines we had the photographs from her archive, or she even had photographs of herself at the opening of the exhibition next to the painting. So there was a lot of material that was giving credit to these works made by her, because even though she's not as well known as Remedios or Leonora, believe it or not, there were a lot of fake paintings by Alice Rahon as well. So having the archive was fundamental to do a very serious curatorial work and making sure everything in there was an original work of art. Then this was another very exciting project, Surreal Friends, that I co-curated. We were 3 curators. It was organized by the Palant House Gallery, a museum in England, and Stefan, the director, curated Kathy Horna. Joanna Moorhead, who is a relative of Leonora, curated Leonora. I curated Remedios, but we didn't work together. They were very close friends, and we did research in many archives, and we spoke with the family, and we worked together to try to do an exhibition that will not only show the best part of the work of these 3 artists, but also the relationship among them when they were together in Mexico in exile. So that's another use of an archive, can help creating very different and exciting projects that put together a historical moment where these artists were creating their work. This is part of the Leonora Carrington viewing of the exhibition. Then this was another project I co-curated with Eileen Ford, curator at LACMA. And this was an idea we both had because of the passion we have for this artist, to create an exhibition that has never been done, to do the dialogue between the women artists that were in Mexico and the US related to surrealism, because Mexico, basically Mexico City and New York were the two main places where all these women came into exile during the war. And then they influenced a lot of local artists, but they also made a lot of trips going back and forth. For instance, Leonora, she arrived first in New York, then she came to Mexico, but then she traveled to Chicago. So there were a lot of connections between these women that have never been explored in an exhibition. So this project took 5 years of research in many archives, and talking with the families and foundations, and trying to find all these links with the artists to create something that was very substantial. Of course, Leonora was very well represented in the show. These are some shootings of the exhibition. It's not moving. Let me see here. It's not working. No. Can you? Gracias. What you see in the museography, this was inspired by an exhibition that Peggy Guggenheim did in New York that Leonora also participated in, that was called First Papers of Surrealism, and Marcel Duchamp did this rope setting as a museography. So we took the inspiration for the exhibition here. Okay. Oh, okay. So the exhibition, originally we wanted to have it in New York, Mexico City, and Los Angeles, because that was a lot of the exiles went to California afterwards. So a group of sort of second-generation surrealists started forming in California, but it was not possible to take it to New York. But then Quebec, the Fine Arts Museum, was interested, so the exhibition went there as well. Then this was another project that was curated in Ireland at the Museum of Modern Art. And I was invited to write for the catalog, but also going back to the different archives and research to Leonora to do this exhibition had a very interesting approach, because it was Leonora's family from her mother's side was from Ireland, and she was raised by an Irish nanny, and she was very influenced by the Celtic mythology and literature. So this exhibition explored many aspects that were unknown about Leonora, or were not explored in depth before. So this was also thanks to the archive that they gave access to a lot of, for example, early notebooks of Leonora where she started drawing and showing this influence of all these stories from the Celtic culture. So that was a very interesting project as well. And well, the last one I've done that Wendy mentioned, it's an exhibition of Frida Kahlo and her connections with Surrealist women. And this project came actually also from an archival work at the Frida Kahlo Museum. I was invited a couple of years ago to start doing research for a book the Frida Kahlo Museum is doing on the secret archive, and on the subject of Frida Kahlo and her relationship with Surrealist women that came to the Blue House, that knew Frida, that met her. And I found very interesting documents that were telling a whole new story we didn't know about. And even with artists such as Frida, that has biographies, has had tons of publications, documentaries, exhibitions, we can still find new ways to see her work because of the foundations and the archives that are available. So these are some shootings of the exhibition, and some of the documents were published for the first time in the catalog. So as you can see, it's really important for for us curators, for scholars, and for everybody interested in doing work with the artists and preserving the legacy to have a foundation and an archive available. So I think it's just great that this is happening with Leonora Carrington, and I hope we all can contribute to make this project be known everywhere, and keep working on Leonora.
I would just add to that, because I have been involved in setting up the Dorothea Tanning Foundation out of New York, who was a peer of Leonora's as well. And that is made up of the director, the head of painting and sculpture at MoMA, and her family and her archivist. And I am allowed in there as a gallerist, but I am not allowed access to a lot of that information because some of it is proprietary, meaning I might know where a lot of the works are, but there's some things I can look at, but other things I can't know. For example, I can't know. It would be a serious conflict of interest for me to know where all the paintings are located. Clearly, when I sell something as a gallerist, or if I find new information, or if I do an exhibition that gets new press, the first thing I do is automatically send it to the archive so they can add it. So it's really a collaborative project, but there is a wall in which I'm not allowed to cross until one day maybe I retire from the gallery world and curate alongside Tere. So is this going to work?
We're ready.
Oh, we're ready. So. Yes. Thank you.
Hello. I apologize for that. Technical problems. We're starting. Oh, help. Okay. Is that some sound? Okay, I really should have introduced that before it started to explain some of what you're seeing. I'm a filmmaker, a producer, a director and producer from London. We started this project about a year ago. We're still raising money, so it's not yet a film that will be confirmed to be made. But a combination of all the elements that these two have been talking about, plus a host of other things, make Leonora Carrington one of the most extraordinary figures to try and make a film about. Not only is her work hugely cinematic in the way it tells stories, but her life is as well. Little hints of it there, hints in what we've talked about here in Mexico. It's immensely complex. We were lucky enough to do a little bit of work with Gabriel here and his son when there was the exhibition at the Tate, and to take them back to Crookie Hall, which is where Leonora was born. It was great fun. We, at the same time, and it was what I really should have been explaining about what you saw, have sort of decided that Leonora deserves a film that's a little bit more complex than a straightforward biography that you often get in arts films, where you have a picture and then you learn she was born in 1917 and etc., etc., despite the fact that her biography is so wondrously interesting all the way through. And so Teresa Griffiths, the director, and I sort of came up with an idea which was based on the fact that the quite famous, I think, fashion photographer Tim Walker, who's based out of London, does quite a lot for Vogue and various magazines, has a complete passion for Leonora. And a couple of years ago, he did a small shoot with Tilda Swinton, some of which you saw there, a couple of the images of at the end of that film. And so we decided that in order for the film to feel that it had the same modern, surrealist vibrancy that Leonora had, we would ask Tim to take 5 of her central biographical paintings, and we're hoping to recreate them partly as photography but also as film. Now, if any of you dares to ask me now what I mean by that, don't, because we're still on the road to working out what we're quite doing. But Tim is really excited about it. Tilda, if we can find a right gap in her schedule, and Teresa and I feel that what we're trying to do is create a documentary that honours her centenary next year, and obviously we'll be using hopefully, all the archives and informations that people have about her. It is an extraordinarily complex life. There's still a lot that isn't quite certain. And we hope to be able to participate in that process. And to celebrate a woman who, while very well known here, is largely unknown in Britain until the Tate exhibition. She has the misfortune of having a namesake, Dora Carrington, of the Bloomsbury Group, who most people assume it's her. So what we're hoping to do is, with the help of the foundation and as many people as who will, to come up with a special piece of work that will honour her memory. I would, if I had the technique, show you a little bit more of what we're planning to do with Tim Walker, but I don't think we've got it and we don't have the time now. So I will leave it at that.
But I would invite anybody at the end after Dr. Weisz speaks. He has some great photo stills that he brought with him from London that I think are worth checking out at the end of our session here today. So.
And what we're genuinely hoping in themselves the Tim Walker collaboration to produce a work of art out of that. And as I say, I have to say it in this context, we haven't yet got the money to do this. So if there's anybody here who fancies getting involved in creating something very exciting, please do come and talk to me.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry about the technicals.
Thank you. Okay, fine. Yeah, I think that's enough. Remember that it's the same thing. No está saliendo. No hay una... No, pues... Ahí está, pero entonces necesito de entrar desde el principio. Acá. Bueno, acá está. Well,
Apologies, you guys. I really am sorry for this.
It's not working. Oh dear. Es que sin imagen esto no tiene chiste. Yeah, well, yeah, if it doesn't work, I mean...
It was working.
Well, yes.
Pues si quieres el modelo chiquito.
Pues que sea el modelo chiquito, ya, ni modo. Bueno, pues así.
Puedes agrandar. Ahí está.
Well, okay. So basically what I'm going to say today is more about the foundation. This is the place where you took us to Croquet-Rond, and it was really incredible, as an experience, because I hadn't seen it for years, So it was very a very emotional experience, I say, So this is basically our team, Gabriel Weisz, Daniel Weisz, and Patricia. At first, we're doing this as a very small nucleus where we start maybe as a very small family enterprise. This is the foundation, and we hope that it'll get bigger as time goes by, Then these are basically the collaborators, both close and so on. It's Sotheby's, it's Secretaría de Cultura, it's Galería de Arte de México, Museo Sumaya, the Gallery Wendy Norris, etc. Galería Pablo Goebel, which was, he disappeared. Okay, so here's the foundation. Basically, the foundation has these very particular points. This is a foundation that is non-profit. It deals with artistic appreciation, exhibitions, workshops, and cultural activities. This is a photo where she appears with Pat and Gerard, and these were her brothers. And these are the activities of the foundation. As you can see, we want to create books and research projects, collaborating with local and international cultural centers, art therapy for adults, youngsters, and seniors. We want to have chats on art and literature. We want to work with people in artistic and literary creation. We want to collaborate with national and international researchers. So you see, what Terry was saying would be maybe part of this project, and again, what was shown to you as a small clip for the film would be maybe another possibility, another ramification of all these things that the foundation could be doing, in the future. The foundation has these activities. It has the literary archives. As you see, we are very interested in archives as well. An art archive. We want to contact galleries, museums, auction houses, and publishers. We're also interested in videos on Leonora and surrealists. We have a few right now. So this is a sort of growing enterprise. And naturally, there is a problem here with her art. We know of a lot of pieces that really claim to be done by Leonora but are not, so we need to authenticate all these pieces, and this is going to be a very important, activity of the foundation. Then we want these links with specialists in literature, art, and art therapy. Now, I'm going to let you let me see. This is the foundation. This is studies on Leonora, research on Leonora, studies and documentation on surrealism, coaching researchers for creative works and documentaries. I'm sort of giving you a list because this is what we want to do. I mean, this is not a kind of, an official talk on Leonora. This is what the foundation means to do. So I'm just giving you this information, so in case you don't know where I'm aiming at, but this is exactly where I'm aiming at. Huh? This was from a production that she did of Penelope. This was for the theater. It was directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky. And this is very amusing, no? It's something that she said, it's not that you are dead or anything dramatic like that. It is simply that you are fading away, and I can't even remember your name. So that was a kind of phrase she had, no? She didn't take herself very seriously, huh? And I think that was a real blessing. So here we have the section on art therapy. Our first activity was at the Met, and there I was sort of interacting with a painting of hers, explaining how she was interested in animals, but also how this particular piece was linked to some of her written work and so on. And a little bit about the kind of, background on art therapy, and it entails a creative activity conceived as a healing process. This is how we conceive art therapy. This is not the only way of considering it, but I'm aware that we want to work on a very specific, we want to focus on very specific things. Art therapy is directed to the creative capacity of every individual. The healing process and personal work is promoted by creative activity. People who want to explore themselves through conflicts, problems, or anxiety in daily life find meaning through this process and open a personal work that activates mind and body. Well, this, of course, this is a way not only a kind of therapeutic, imposition on individuals that have problems or conflicts and so on, but also people who want to work with themselves. I know this sounds a bit peculiar, but this is exactly what we mean by art therapy. And here is one of our workshops at Museo Sumaya. Actually, this was a workshop that was directed by Gonzalo, who's going to give a few words on the workshop. You sit here so. Sí, espera. Ay, Pati, hazlo, por favor. I'm a disgrace.
Pero ya, lo tuyo ya acabó.
Sí, ya.
Pues no.
Pues lo vamos a preparar a la
Sí.
y me voy a keynote, me voy a presentar.
One of the things I find that's distinctive about the Leonora Carrington Foundation, apart from other archives that Terry and I have both worked in, is that there is this devotion to community and to giving back on a cause that was very near to and dear to Leonora's life. And I think without art, arguably, she would have not managed as well as she did. And I know I work with a few artists in San Francisco who are the same, and we're lucky to have a doctor, an expert in this area here with us.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and share with you briefly the work that Foundation Leonora Carrington has been doing with a special community. Patty and Gabi invited me as a physician and with a master degree in art studies to create a pilot program which could foster social and individual action with participants with dementia and elderly people through art engagement. The main goals of this program were to promote environments where inclusion, diversity, multiculturality, let the participants be part of the social activities, as well to develop their own expression and creativity. We worked during several sessions in a daycare center called Meridia here in Mexico City, where we could use different approaches, pedagogical approaches, multisensory approaches, to activate participation, reflection, and dialogue. The participants were able to explore different processes of expression, such as sculpture, painting, as well as different art expressions, such as surrealism with Leonora Carrington, muralism, street art. So they could engage really with different artistic process. Some examples here. Oh, it's not working. We also could interact with different pieces of arts at the Museum of Sumaya with the help of museum educators. We could touch sculptures, we could observe paintings, we could talk, we could create a piece of art at the end of the session here. But I think the main thing that the patient could do were to exchange their possibilities, to chat, to reflection about a piece of art, and at the end, they could improve their quality of life. This is another session in the Museo Sumaya, and that is important, but because we could integrate different part of the society, educators, artists, to reduce the social stigma about the dementia and the elderly people, so they cannot be excluded from the society. So I think the work that Leonora Carrington Foundation had done with this activity is wonderful, and I'm glad to be part of this project with this and future projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we open up to questions?
Yeah.
No, well, I'm not.
Yes.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes, I think, for questions. I'm sorry, sir. Do you want to?
Thank you. I'm Ricardo Suarez Aro, and congratulations on the foundation. I'm curious about how is the foundation going to work? You were mentioning, I mean, there's a very fine line between the scholars, the academy, and the art market. But when they intersect, talking about looking to the future, if we see stories, I mean, hopefully it's not going to happen, but if we see stories like Picasso and the conflict between Maya and Claude, have you thought about things like this? Or how is the foundation going to protect themselves against all these kind of things? For example, right now, as far as I know, there are two types of certificates in the market. One is given by Galería de Arte Mexicano, which has huge prestige, and the other one are the pieces that are bronze, and they have certificate from your mother, apparently the last project she did before she passed away. So I think we should do a crossover, because there is a lack of commitment from the ones that we are on this side. We do have archives, but most of the time galleries and dealers are very jealous ourselves from sharing this information, and I think this would enrich the whole dialogue.
Yeah, may I take this question for you? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, and it's a really important one, and one that I've had with not only the Carrington family, but other modern artists that we work with. I do think the archive is a place that is not at all, like I mentioned earlier, involved in commercial activities. And there is this wall bonus on the gallerists and auctions and anybody else to supply that information and know that that information is safe. For example, when I say that I just sold this painting to person X, then that information remains in this little vault, if you will. I think issues of certificates of authenticity or opinion are a very delicate one. And if I may say, I think it's something that will be sorted out continuously, but I would say it's safe to say that if the family and the archive, the foundation isn't blessing that at this point in time, then that I know the market won't accept it. But I do think that is something that because there have been a few false pieces on the market, not many, but they do come up from time to time, and we also have an archive of those, which is interesting to see sometimes. So we are very aware of that, and the authentication process does go straight to the foundation and the archive, and that is really the only certificate that I value. And I would also say when in doubt, because there are paintings that always came up. There was a Varro that came up a few years back, And we had all the experts, the Varro family. There were about 12 people from the auctions just weighing in on that. And we knew ultimately, but it took a lot of research that Terry drove and other people drove. But it's exciting when you unearth something like that with an artist who maybe didn't keep track of every single thing like Annales Rajón did. So I do think, Ricardo, you're hitting on a very important, and the foundation really, somebody said to me today, it's been in this gestation period for 4 years, and today we just gave birth. So I think it really is starting now, and a lot of those things are going to be answered in time, but any authentication should go through the family at this point in time.
Thank you, Wendy.
And you see, that this is why it's so important, the kind of work that Teresa is doing as well, which is the archival part of the project. And once we have a good archive, then we can discuss, you know, if this piece is authentic or not, no? You see, I think that this is very important so that the public knows what they're getting into before buying a piece or a painting or whatever, no? And I think it's only fair that they're well informed in what they're getting, no? They're acquiring, no?
Any other questions, comments? Anyone? No?
Pueden preguntar en español también, I speak Spanish.
Okay.
No?
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And if anyone has any questions, I think that everyone will be outside if you have any more questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.